Today on the ATL Box Score podcast, we talk all about the All-State Sugar Bowl and the victory by Texas over the University of Georgia, breaking it all down from a University of Georgia standpoint, since we cover Atlanta sports here. So we just want to wish you guys a happy new year here at the ATL Box Score podcast with Alex Berger. In case you're curious, I am Alex Berger, and joining me in this next segment, at the intro segment of the beginning of the show, is going to be Steve Choi, breaking down all the bowl games, and for the better end of the show, just me and Steve talking about the Sugar Bowl. This is the ATL Box Score podcast with Alex Berger. This is our Sugar Bowl wrap-up show. Hope you enjoy. Now, you guys might be wondering, how does a podcast that just recently started, what do I use for recording space? Well, I actually use a place called Spaces, and I go to the center that's Spaces Midtown East, and I use their resources that they have here to create my podcast and to put it out there to the world and to do other business-related things, and it's pretty much my home base to grow my business and my product that I'm developing for you guys. And if you want to check it out, I have Steve Choi with me, who is one of the regional managers who manages a lot of different centers, also with Spaces and the Regis brand, to tell you more about Spaces Midtown East.
Hey, thanks, Alex, for inviting me on the show. We love having you as well as ATL Box Score with us here at Spaces. I want to invite anybody, all your listeners, to come in and take a test drive. Let us know that Alex sent you, and we'll give you a free 5-day test drive to Spaces, which is a hybrid, collaborative, and private workspace location. We're all over the world, particularly here in Atlanta. We have 5 locations, and we'll be opening 2 more soon here. So I am the area manager. Come on in. We offer private offices as well as 8,000 square feet of collaborative space for our members to come in and check it and just be productive. So again, come on in. Let us know that Alex sent you and the ATL Box Score, and we'll go ahead and set you up for 5 days free.
Well, thank you, Steve. Definitely appreciate you. Definitely appreciate your friendly staff for helping me out and giving me all the resources I need to be successful. If you want to know more about Spaces Midtown, they are just a block north from the Fox Theater. I know all you guys know where the Fox Theater is. They're just a block north from the Fox Theater, and I'm going to put the website in the show description, so you have no excuses if you're like me, trying to start your own business or your own brand. Check out Spaces Midtown East. Well, welcome, friends. Happy New Year to you. Hope that you had a great New Year, celebrating the New Year. It's 2019, and we live in a time and an era where UCF is not undefeated anymore.
Wow.
It's kind of new year. UCF is what UCF looked like in the past. They're not national champions.
That's sad.
The LSU people, if you saw it, man, the LSU people were just hating on UCF. Even saw something on Twitter. No, I actually saw it on Facebook actually, where LSU players said beat the defending national champs.
Wow.
I mean, who knew in a time where you had a playoff thing and one team goes undefeated and that they can declare themselves national champions. But I feel like for the most part with the games on New Year's Day and David Berger predicted, though, that he thought Clemson and Notre Dame would be a closer game, but Notre Dame got manhandled. I'm surprised the Gators here in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm surprised they manhandled Michigan. I thought that was going to be a closer game than it actually turned out being. Maybe they were over. Still feeling some weirdness about the loss that they lost to in Ohio State on Thanksgiving weekend. And you had Urban Meyer, speaking of the other side of the Big Ten, you had Urban Meyer go out on a high note, which a lot of people kind of thought that with Washington. But it was interesting with that game, with the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. That sounds weird, putting PlayStation in as a bowl sponsor, because it wasn't like that. You would always have like the big name general company, like it used to be the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl.
Right.
And it was like that. I was like, that makes sense. Tostitos, Arizona, that's close enough to Mexico. You know what I mean?
Right.
And now it feels weird that it's like, wow, it's actually the PlayStation. Because it's like PlayStation was a thing too, and in video game stuff, it was only a thing that it's like the younger generation knew about.
Sure.
Your parents' generation didn't know about it, but now that's more of a popular.
Your parents' generation didn't know about Tostitos either.
Actually, they did.
Well, when the Tostitos came out,
my parents always had the Tostitos.
Their parents didn't know what Tostitos was. They're like,
oh, true. That's a good point, Steve.
Yeah, they're like, what are these nacho chips?
Well, we have Steve Choi joining us for this segment, but you guys probably think I'm playing footsie a little bit with you.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I'm avoiding all that stuff, because UCF and actually Washington, they both kind of came back there in their bowl games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's a Alabama Clemson national championship, which I think majority of people out there saw that coming. I don't think we weren't going to see Notre Dame not score a touchdown and just get smacked in the face. And for a brief second, if you're a Georgia fan, yes, I mentioned them now. Now we're in that conversation.
Here we go.
If you're a Georgia fan, or especially if you live in this state, you were thinking, man, Georgia should be in that playoff spot. It looks really wide open, and I know how they played in the SEC championship and all that jazz. But then last night happened at 8:45, which sucks, especially if you're like someone like me who stayed up. Well, I'm not saying I'm one of these older folks that has to go to bed at 8 o'clock. That's not my bedtime or anything like that. But I waited all freaking day for this game, man. It was the highlight of the day. Like, I don't mind. I
felt like you waited a whole month for this game.
I was glad that Georgia was in a good bowl game, but it's not like I'm like, oh, I need to. The anticipation is building. It's building. It's building. It was kind of like more like, oh, the ball dropped, and I said to that special someone, oh yeah, by the way, go Dawgs. It's game day right now. So it's like that. Like it is kind of like, oh, it's gonna be game day tomorrow. That's right. We play in the Sugar Bowl tomorrow. It was one of those things. You know what I mean, Steve?
Oh, I gotcha. You had other things on your mind, then suddenly the ball dropped and it was
Not just other things on my mind. It's kind of just like it was one of those things that, yeah, we did like a podcast on it and everything like that. That got me a little bit fired up. Then I forgot about it, and it's like, oh yeah, Georgia's playing tomorrow.
Nice.
Type of thing. It was more of a build-up, honestly, last year for the Rose Bowl game because it meant something. It meant that this was a one other step towards a champion. Yeah, closer to a championship. Right. And it was like, and like I said, it was one of those things. Oh yeah, by the way, go Dawgs. Right. It's game day.
Gotcha. So you're ready to go.
Right. I was ready to go the day of, not like,
gotcha.
Not like, oh wow, like
Makes sense.
Georgia's in Los Angeles and they go to Disney World and they're doing practice and now I get to roll out the game film and
gotcha.
I hope Kirby Smart has a plan to smack Baker Mayfield in the mouth type of thing.
Wow. Nice.
But it was like, we should beat Texas.
Sure.
On paper, we're a better team than Texas.
For sure.
But unfortunately, it didn't look that way.
Nope.
Maybe because Matthew McConaughey was there. But
all right.
I loved it on SNL, and they were just like, yeah, I talked to my hero last night. No, that's not Matthew McConaughey. This is not a good Matthew McConaughey. I talked to my hero last night, and it was me 10 years ago. I said, Matthew, you're going to be hosting the Oscars. But it was funny. I actually won an Oscar 4 years ago.
Nice.
The best Matthew McConaughey, I feel like, was in The Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
When he was just like, trying to make this as G-rated as I can.
Okay.
Then when he said that line, keep on filling our glasses up until we both pass out.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
That was a good line. But anyways, you got Matthew McConaughey there, right. And you got the drama with the bull versus
the bulldog.
Well, no, the longhorn. It's not really a bull. It kind of looks like a bull, but it's like it's a cow with long horns.
Sure.
So you got the steer and the bulldog.
Right.
I guess they were trying to be friendly and to because usually what ends up happening in these games too is that the coaches meet before the game and they talk, they chat. And usually Kirby Smart usually participates in that unless you're Dan Mullen, the Florida Gators head coach. But they usually chat, and I guess that's what they were trying to do here with this, with the meeting of the mascots. Be like, hey, what's up? And then
I heard it was a photo op is what they were trying to do. ESPN,
I could see that would make sense.
ESPN was trying to coordinate some sort of photo op between the two mascots.
I can definitely see that happening.
Right.
Dang it, ESPN, you screwed that one up.
You know what's funny is, so I read that there was a scuffle or some sort of altercation between the two mascots, and what I imagined in my mind before reading it was like the two dudes who were wearing the costumes got into a scuffle, which makes sense.
That has happened before. I've seen that. Right. Not in college football, but I've just seen that in general.
But that's what I'm saying. So that was what I was thinking about. I was like, oh, geez, okay, you guys couldn't even hold off. Okay, way to make your schools look great. But then when I saw the clip and it was the actual animals, I was like, oh my God, this is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life.
I was like, whoa.
It's just so silly.
Right, it was pretty silly. That what Steve's talking about is Uga came over to where Bevo was, the Texas mascot, and he got a little out of control and went through his restraints, and everyone had to kind of move out of the way. It seemed like there was a bunch of photographers there, and it seemed like
some people got hurt.
Oh, I can imagine. It looked like people got hurt.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, I guess to put it mildly, it was kind of like it went from the scene there went from a regular like pregame football, people stretching, warming up, photographers taking random pictures of random things that have to do with the game, and then it turned into the running of the bulls in Spain.
Right.
Like the bull just got released.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, actually we're supposed to run from this thing?
I mean, I was waiting for somebody to jump on his back and go 8 seconds.
8 seconds. Oh boy.
Yeah. But I mean, that was a great, so that kind of was, unfortunately for Georgia, that was sort of like an omen.
It was the beginning of the end. But before we get into the game though, I want to play something that I found on the YouTubes. And I feel like this kind of sums up what I really do feel like this is what sums up what a lot of Georgia people were thinking last night.
Listen, I'm going to apologize right now. This is embarrassing and sad. This is absolutely ridiculous. And if you, anybody that thinks I'm fixing to come on here and say, oh, the game don't matter. No, the games matter. This game matters. There is no excuse for this. This is pitiful and sad. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, I feel like that is, that's how a lot of people are feeling, especially at halftime. I found this on YouTube. It is, titled Georgia versus Texas Sugar Bowl Rage. So if you want to listen to more of that or see more of that video, I'll put that in the show description. But I feel like that sums it up for a lot of Georgia people. Sad and embarrassing.
That sums it up.
Yeah. We're going to next get into the Sugar Bowl and what was not for the Georgia Bulldogs. So with that video, and that kind of leads us into talking about the Sugar Bowl and the aftermath of what happened. Georgia loses. It's going to show up like a close game, and I'm glad it shows up on a close game in the box score. But Georgia pretty much got dominated majority of the game, and then they got back into it and had an opportunity to possibly, it was kind of one of those miracle opportunities that they had, and the ball just didn't bounce the right way, and Georgia starts off 2019 on the losing side of things, which is never good. But if you want to look at some optimistic things that since Georgia is coached by Kirby Smart is from the Nick Saban coaching tree, and a lot of people have commented that since Kirby Smart took over that the program is very built off that Saban coaching tree, off the Bama way, you could say, turned into the Georgia way. And back in 2009, Alabama did lose to Utah. Then when they were in the Sugar Bowl in 2014, they lost to Oklahoma. That pretty much routed them, kind of like what Texas did to Georgia last night. And guess what? Alabama came back, and Alabama did what they did, and they won national championships after that particular Sugar Bowl. But I get from a defensive standpoint, you had guys like Jordan Davis, you had your big guy, Mr. Walker out, and that really, I feel like those injuries on defense really hurt them. And the first drive, Texas did whatever they wanted to do, and there wasn't a pass rush. Sam Ehlinger just went down the field, just boom, 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 and they scored a touchdown. Now, at that point of the game, I'm thinking, okay, well, this is kind of typical. This is what happens that with Kirby Smart's defense a lot of times. Hey, the first drive, the opponent scores on you. Okay, that's nothing new. I'm not worried right now. And I knew that Georgia could possibly come back. And they didn't score. And Texas kept on going. Another solid drive, just getting the ball down the field, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, why are the wideouts so wide open? This isn't like Georgia. You have J.R. Reed back there. You have Richard LeCounte, and Richard LeCounte, man, he could have made some big plays, but his angles were just all wrong. That, but also too, it's a positive takeaway in this on defense, guys. Even though it's not the best defensive performance that the Bulldogs had, but still, you had Brenton Cox in there. Brenton Cox is a highly recruited linebacker that's going to take over DeAndre Walker's position. Now, with that, he got a lot of experience. So the guys that they're going to have to replace this year have got a lot of experience playing in this game, like Brenton Cox, and hopefully we're going to see a more of a pass rush from him. A lot of times they just beat him off the edge, but he has that great speed that comes off the edge too. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops, and hopefully he'll turn into the player that the Bulldogs recruited him for. Man, that I'm watching that pass that Riley Ridley just dropped. In the first quarter, end of the first quarter, it was that 5-yard hitch that he dropped that pass, and that was pretty much Georgia's night. That seeing just a simple play like that, Georgia just dropping the ball, and you have people like McCole Hardman talking to the media after the game, talking about how we weren't really motivated to play. And yeah, I know that's going to be like the main headline when you talk about Georgia. But I mean, I know Kirby Smart defended it his post-game press conference, saying, I know that's probably going to what people are going to talk about and everything like that. But man, like I just don't totally believe that. I believe that from like a coaching standpoint. I believe like the coaching staff was probably locked into this game and wanted to see the Dawgs be successful and to show that they are one of the Joneses in college football. But right now you don't really look like you're one of the established teams in college football, to be totally honest with you. It's going to take next season to honestly prove that you are trying to keep pace with Alabama's and the Ohio States, and in this universe. So that puts a stinger on Georgia, and that's what sucks about this. If you're a Georgia fan, it wasn't, honestly, like, to be totally honest with you, to be totally real, this game meant more for Texas. For Texas's program, for where Texas had been. Guys, you got to realize, too, this is the first time Texas played a bowl game outside the state of Texas since 2011. So there was a lot more to prove to the Texas program. Now, if there was ever a game like that for Georgia to prove that we belong on this national stage of college football, it was the national championship that they had last year. That they proved that they were at the highest echelon of college football. Now, obviously, this isn't the national championship. This isn't a playoff game, which I think a lot of these players really got into that hype that it should be us in this game, or in the playoff game, that we shouldn't necessarily have to be playing in this game. And I'm surprised that Georgia kind of had that attitude. But at the same time, you got to give them credit. They didn't give up. I'm always one of those people, too. I don't really want to bash you when you lose, because I feel like some of that stuff that sports media people do, I feel like that's really unnecessary. And I feel like that with this game, that it pretty much just meant pride for the Georgia program, that we can handle our business. But it seems like a lot of the players took the attitude of, especially the players that are staying, that I don't really want to be here. Or I don't want to say I really want to be here. I don't think that was the issue, but it's like you just didn't play the way that people, to your expectations. You just didn't play to those expectations. And defense, I feel like overall, giving up those 2 touchdowns at the beginning of the game. Outside of that, it took them a while to settle in, because they didn't settle in that first drive at all. But there were some good plays, there were some bad plays, and there were some, like, why are you giving up 5-yard run plays? Like, that's not supposed to happen. Well, that's something that it's like, as a defensive staff, especially when Kirby Smart got there, that's something they pride themselves on. That they're not going to give up huge plays in the run game. And now Texas is gassed you. I think you could tell that there's some real turnover with the coaching staff, with Mel Tucker going to Colorado. That was pretty obvious last night. That was pretty obvious, especially seeing Kirby Smart being a whole lot more hands-on. And you need a new defensive coordinator. You need to fill up that defensive staff, because yesterday I could tell, like, they were working with a lot of grad assistants. Because obviously, I mean, that's just going to happen when Mel Tucker goes to a new place like Colorado. That he's going to take some of the guys that helped him be successful. And that's just the nature of this business. And yes, it is a business. Even though it's college athletics, it is a business. But you got to give credit to Sam Ehlinger. I didn't really like the commentary that they were comparing him to Tebow. He's not Tebow, but he does play like him. But he thing about Tebow and him, he has better pocket presence than Tebow. Plus, too, Tebow was pretty much a tight end. He was like 6'2", 6'3", and over 300 pounds type of prototypical quarterback for that type of system. And but I mean, he could make those runs that Tebow did. Sam Ehlinger reminds me of a bigger Colt McCoy, except he has more pocket presence than Colt McCoy. If there was someone that it's like I probably wanted to base it on, it would probably be them, because I mean, he tries to keep passing plays alive. So I didn't really agree with the commentary. I get that that's probably an easy comparison. Plus, two, Tebow was at the game, so I could see why the commentators were all about that. And I know that, and it just seemed weird. It seemed like they were pro Texas for some reason. And I'm just like, hey guys, even though we just lost to Alabama in the SEC championship, we've done a lot of great things too. Fromm's an interesting quarterback just as much as Ehlinger is. Fromm's wanted to be a Bulldog since he was a kid too. But no, they went the pro Texas route for some reason. I don't know what that was about. I really don't. And I thought I just like, even like from a content standpoint, from broadcasting the game, I just like an even keeled information. I don't like when CBS does the worst job of this. I feel like ESPN's really good for the most part with trying to keep the content of talking about the two teams, the two schools, to a pretty even level. But it seemed like they went the CBS route with whoever has good momentum during the game. That's the team that we're going to talk the most positively about. And that happened last night with Texas. And that's a very CBS Sports thing that happens. You usually don't see that with ESPN. Like showing Sam Ehlinger when he's a 9-year-old doing the hook 'em horns thing. Like that, watching that, I was like, this is like very CBS Sports on ESPN. CBS Sports. Oh, I just said CBS Sports on ESPN. That's very CBS on the CBS broadcasting the SEC that you see that type of thing. I'm like, really, guys? Really? Do we really? I mean, I'm not a big fan of showing the kid when he's 1 or 8 years old. I know that TV broadcasts do that and everything like that. I mean, it's okay if they show it just for like, if it's like a 30-second thing, but don't drag this out to a 3-hour thing. So with the coverage, I don't feel like the coverage was even between both schools. And I don't really want to get into all that. And maybe this is the homer coming out in me, but that just kind of surprised me, especially from an ESPN broadcast, that was going on. Maybe with Texas, with all that money, they probably paid off ESPN. No, I'm joking. I don't want to go that way. I don't want to start a controversy or anything like that. But I don't feel like the coverage was even at all when it came to the broadcast booth. But, and it's weird too. I mean, it's such a weird game. Fromm didn't look like Fromm. He missed 5 or 6 deep balls. And every time he would throw deep, it would frustrate the mess out of me. This doesn't happen. Partly it was because, credit to Texas's secondary, that they covered the hell out of Georgia's wide receivers. And I knew that they had a talented secondary. But it's just one of those days too. And here in Atlanta right now, it's not sunny out. It's gray skies everywhere. I don't know if that's just happenstance or whatnot, but gray skies everywhere. And the sucky thing too about this too, when Sam Ehlinger on at the beginning of the fourth quarter, when Georgia, when it looked like when Texas was dominating Georgia, that they had a pretty good goal line stand. And then the next play, they scored a touchdown in the corner of the end zone. Texas just did what they wanted to Georgia they just did what they wanted to do to Georgia last night. And I know this is frustrating as a mess. Granted, too, and I know a lot of people are kind of talking about this right now. Actually, Tom Herman checked out Georgia during the spring. Now, this is, if you don't know about football culture, this is a very, very common thing. When you have a successful program like the University of Georgia, people are going to be interested. How did this happen? How are you guys now competing for national championships or getting into or default getting into New Year's Six bowls? How is this happening? But still, this was a good step for Tom Herman and his program, since they kind of up and down season. This is probably the best game Sam Ehlinger played all year. Now, he was on point when they had to play Oklahoma for the first time. And also, too, when I talked about the beginning of the game, I also thought, okay, they went up by a touchdown. And I was just like, you know what? They did this to Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game. And Oklahoma came back. So that's why I wasn't worried. And with Kirby Smart, I'm really not worried with Georgia as I used to be. If it was Mark Richt, which congratulations to Mark Richt for choosing retirement instead of coaching. We'd like to, Coach Rich, if you're listening right now, we'd like to have you back in Athens or in the Atlanta metro area, because you definitely were a positive influence, and I'd like to see you do more with the Paul Oliver Network. So I guess that's more of a pipe dream than a reality right now. But I think that'd be cool if that could happen. So, but yeah, if this was a Mark Richt coach team, and I hate to say this because I love Coach Richt. I love what he brought. I love him as a man and as a coach. But I was that if this was Mark Richt still at the helm, this probably would have been worse. And I give a lot of credit to Georgia, Jake Fromm, for coming back in this game. Now, even though, a lot of people are going to say, even though they came back and that it was pretty much, they came off of garbage penalties with having two targeting calls. And hey, and that's also too a sign of a young program with Texas, or a sign of a little bit of immaturity in your program when two of your players in back-to-back plays get targeting calls. Now, say what you want about targeting. Say what you want about targeting. Say that it's a ridiculous rule, shouldn't exist in college football, and that it's a bunch of BS that you have to, that once you get a targeting play, that your player has to be ejected from the game. Say what you want about that. But still, rules are rules. Rules are meant to be enforced. And you shouldn't be doing that stuff in the first place. You shouldn't be doing that stuff when you have a lead like Texas did. And you shouldn't be taking shots at Jake Fromm with your helmet. Just to be real. Because you've already established a lead like Texas did. And guess what? Because they did that, Georgia scored a touchdown off of it. They had a chance to win that game. Who knows what happened on that onside kick if Georgia recovered the ball and they scooped and scored. So that, my friends, was the Sugar Bowl. Were you glad that you missed out and saw Equalizer 2 instead?
I am glad. It sounds like that Sugar Bowl left you with a toothache.
So I guess you like that cheese with your salad.
Yes, sir. Yes,
You know, it's funny at like Olive Garden how they always ask you. It's like, do you want cheese with that? Do you want cheese with that? Do you want extra cheese with that?
The answer is always yes, isn't it?
Well, with my family, it was always no.
Oh, well.
Well,
but no, seriously though, it was actually like that cheese with that wine. But either way,
but it's like Jake Fromm's deep balls. Oh my gosh, they drove me insane. Like,
I mean, when you look at the final score, it looks closer than the game actually.
Yeah,
was,
it does. It
right?
does. It does.
So a few years from now, no one will remember, especially if they go in and take it next year.
Yeah,
National championships, and it'll be all like, who cares?
Exactly. The national championship next year is actually in New Orleans.
Ah.
But this year, you know where it's at?
Yes, I do.
Santa Clara, your old stomping
the
ground.
Bay.
So,
I think that's like the stupidest idea to have it there. I mean, I guess it makes sense from
what they want to do is they want to have from what they got from the national championship. This year last year it was here in Atlanta.
Sure.
This year it's in Santa Clara.
Nice.
Next year it's in New Orleans.
Gotcha.
Next year, the year after that, in was it 20? Is it 21 or 2020?
2021. 2020.
2020.
Where's it gonna be?
It's going to be in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So it seems like, and then
it's
like 2020 or 2023 is going to be in Miami.
Gotcha.
So they want it to be well, even like
decent weather climate.
Even like 2015, it was. I don't think it's a decent weather climate. I think they just want to go to these big markets.
Yeah.
Or especially that it's like are going to draw someone to a crowd for college football.
Yeah.
They're
going to go to Chicago.
I don't think they'll go to Chicago.
New York.
I think one year it might be in New York in the future.
Texas. Dallas.
Oh yeah, they'll definitely go. The first time they did it was actually in Dallas.
Nice.
So
I just say that because the Bay is not necessarily known for being a college football town. Although there's the great rivalry between Stanford and Cal. It's just not right. But again, it's not for just the people in the Bay.
Well, so. What does San Francisco have? Think about it, Steve.
The Niners.
They have a new NFL stadium. That's where they're going.
Sure.
That's where they're going. Not just
which is funny because no one even knows where Santa Clara, California is at.
But that's where the new Niner Stadium's at.
Yeah.
But it's like that's what they're doing though. They're going to these places that have new NFL stadiums.
Sure.
By the time it's in Los Angeles,
sure.
that new NFL stadium in Los Angeles it didn't open up. By the time it's in Miami, Hard Rock Stadium, yeah, it's kind of been broken in a couple of times,
Sure.
but it's still a new stadium.
Yeah. No, good. I mean, it's too bad Georgia's not going, because then I always like representing my my new home against my old home, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
New home against your old home.
Yeah. It's sort of like introducing all my old buddies to, like, hey, get a load of this.
Right. I think it's funny, like in the movie Venom, your old home and your new home all got combined into
I
one.
know, to be one home.
Right, exactly. Well, that is my take on the Sugar Bowl. So, just to let you guys know, if you felt that there was something weird with your volume, that we weren't loud enough, or you couldn't hear us, it's just because actually on our on one of our recording devices that we changed the compression around to more of a voice reflective compression. But I realized with that you have to turn the volume up on the different microphone channels. So that's what happened in technical terms. So we apologize if you couldn't hear us well enough if you're listening in your car or wherever you're listening to. Second of all, I feel like, we mentioned this at the beginning of the show, but I feel like the Bevo Uga encounter is just starting to become a little bit overrated. That a lot of people have got the opinions, and this is the opinion on the street, that Uga really didn't try to fight back with Bevo, which it's like he's not really supposed to. He's a dog, and that's a 300-pound steer. I mean, come on, people. Really? Yeah, it was kind of a telltale sign of that's what the Sugar Bowl looked like. But I like what someone wrote in the AJC, that Uga approached it like that he got away as fast as a 5-star can't get away from a 300-pound steer. So whoever who wrote that in the AJC, congrats. I appreciate you put a positive spin on that situation, because that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, wow, at least he got out of the way. Because it was pretty much, if you haven't seen it, folks, it was like the running of the bulls. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to run away from an animal like that that's out of control. I more say shame on Texas. They should have subdued that animal. That animal should not have got out of that barrier. So shame on Texas and Texas handlers. They should have subdued that animal. But no. Apparently he was strong enough that he could get away. Or they shouldn't have brought him at all. But I know that's unrealistic. I know Texas people aren't really liking me right now. But I don't really care at this point. Because you should have kept Texas. You should have kept your animal under control if you want to bring him into a public environment like the Mercedes Superdome. It's weird saying the Mercedes Superdome, especially when we have Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But that is our show, and this is where we need your help, guys. If you like what you heard, please be sure to like us on social media, wherever you see us on social media, and just put a comment in the comment section. Tell us what you thought of the show. We want to get your opinions on what you guys thinking, what you guys want to hear in future episodes. We're down for hearing suggestions here at the ATL Box Score Podcast. Also, too, we need your help in a variety of different ways, not just with liking on social media, but if you're listening to us on iTunes, and you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating, and we would hope that you give us a good review, because that's how we get found and sought after on iTunes, and that's how we build an audience. And right now we're just trying to build an audience the best way we can. Also, too, follow us on social follow us on social media. That can be a tongue twister. So yeah, follow us on social media. We are on Facebook and Twitter, and Instagram is coming soon. But thanks for checking us out. This is the ATL Box Score Podcast with Alex Berger, and we will see you guys in Football Friday. So look forward to hearing from you guys then. Episode 14 is out.